Hey, what's up, everybody? Give it a second, let everyone hop in here. What's up? What's up? So huge news coming out right now, and it looks like everything is about to change. Before I jump into this, I just want to lay out the facts here. I'm not here to scare anyone or get anyone nervous. I'm just simply here to point out the clear facts as to what's going on, so that we can use that information to make smart and educated decisions based on our money that we have in the bank or the capital that we have aside. We need to take in all this real information and not be naive as to what's really going on. Real estate, the economy, the stock market, crypto, every asset class out there right now is in jeopardy of some very volatile market swings pending a lot of these big changes that are coming. So please smash that like button before we begin. And I'm going to share my screen and show you guys a little bit of what I'm looking at right now. So first and foremost, this article on The Real Deal. This article just came out today. And what they're saying here is that rent control rocks the Midwest. Is New York State next? Let's see here. There we go. Okay. Is New York State next? So the Twin City made history Tuesday as the first in the Midwest to enact rent control. So if you don't know what rent control is, I do. This is what it is. Rent control is a set of laws and guidelines that the state will mandate that landlords follow. So it may be that you can only increase rent by 3% per year. And maybe you could increase rent along with inflation. It may be that you have to follow certain guidelines when entering your apartment, the apartment that you own, or possibly when you can show your unit, what the eviction process has to look like, how much money you would have to pay your tenant to relocate, even if they failure to pay, or if they have a failure to pay 2019, you didn't have to pay. But nowadays, it probably makes more sense to where now landlords are forced to pay simply because going through the legal process is going to be way more expensive, and it makes more sense financially to write the check if you have a rent control tenant. But if you're in, let's say, Florida, odds are you're probably not going to pay your tenant to relocate. But if you're in LA, odds are you're probably going to write a 5-figure check to get the tenant out. So that's what rent control is. Just, 10,000 foot view. And by the way, it doesn't stop there. So also rent control, what this does do is that they say that the benefits of rent control is that it will keep housing costs affordable. But in reality, what ends up happening is that the general rotation of real estate, where people live somewhere for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, then go somewhere else, that ends up going away, because what happens is that rent rises much greater than 3% or 4% per year. And so over that 5-year period, they say, hey, I'm paying $800 now, and if I would relocate, it's going to cost me $1,200 or $1,300. So people end up staying where they are. And then ultimately what happens is that there's less housing stock available, and the only real housing stock is going to be brand new construction that's not mandated through rent control. And then ultimately, those new tenants are paying $2,500, $2,800, $3,000, $3,500 a month for an apartment that they can't really afford, simply because there's no housing stock available. So that's what it looks like in Los Angeles. It looks like that in New York, but now they're trying to do that all across America, it seems. So here's what they're trying to do here. In St. Paul, new bill will cap annual rent increase of 3%, applicable to all buildings. So in LA, the guideline is, I believe it's 1979 or 1980. So if your building was built after that, then you are okay to increase it. I think they recently just changed it to make it even, I think it was 2000, I'm going to verify, but I think it was like early 2000s now is where the building will have to be built above that date, or it's going to be considered rent control. So I'm going to confirm that and give the exact date. I think they just changed that, though, very, very recently. It says that in Minneapolis, voters authorized the city council to draft rent control ordinance details to come. The Minnesota measures are some of the boldest in the country. Experts say follow a trail of tenant-friendly housing policies enacted in the past few years. New York strengthened tenant protections in 2019. Oregon adopted rent control this same year, and California followed in 2020. Another thing that many people don't know about rent control that is very, very important is that in a place like Los Angeles, there's firms like Basta and Public Counsel, which represent tenants for free, completely for free. And so if you're a landlord, you might have to hire like a Dennis Block, who's like one of the biggest landlord attorneys in LA, for $300-$400 an hour. And you might have to hire him the entire time. And if you have to go to a jury trial, if you have to do any payouts at the end, that one eviction could cost you $18,000, $20,000, or $25,000, or maybe even more when you consider a buyout, which most landlords are going to be forced to pay. I think now it's like $70, $100. But anyway, the tenant gets represented completely for free. And then ultimately, the attorney, before how it was worked out, is that the attorney representing the tenant would actually get a percentage of some of the money that was sent over. So it was a whole big, like the whole thing was very, very shady. But essentially, it incentivized tenants to do whatever they wanted because they got free legal counsel. Everything was pretty much taken care of for them. And everything was set up in a way to where tenants were more likely to be favored in the court system than landlords. But now it's not just happening in LA. It's not just happening in New York. Now it's spreading, it looks like everywhere. So in New York, let's see here. In New York, good cause evictions is on the docket. A bill for real estate industry deemed universal rent control, as it would shield renters from eviction if their landlord raised the rent by more than 3% per year or 1.5% of inflation, whichever is higher. Advocates for the tenant side agenda in New York see momentum that could boost the chance of passing good cause with legislative, right? So it comes down here, it says, let's see here. While the pandemic induced unemployment made it difficult for some tenants to make higher rent, a housing market subsequently pushed rents to record high, adding further strain for the part. Landlords had argued that missed rent, let's see here, it is, people really want legislation like this. They want more tenant protections. They want more security in their homes. This is not more security. All this is more control by Big Brother over all the real estate. This isn't security that tenants have. Tenants now simply they stand under the umbrella of Big Brother, but ultimately this doesn't help them long term. This, if anything, this shatters mom and pop landlords. Big BlackRock, the big corporations, big conglomerates that have endless money. This doesn't matter so much to them. But for the mom and pop landlord who just missed out on a year's worth of rent or 18 months worth of rent because they had one or two tenants that didn't pay, and now they can't increase their rents to make up for their losses, it's a big problem. It's a really big problem. But what they're trying to do here is they are trying to, let's see here, policies came, affordable housing, Twin Cities, dire situation in New York, and let's see, good cause. More complicated rent control structures. They're trying to push for a universal, even with these enactments of rent control and rent reforms, tenant advocates aren't happy. Let's see here. They're trying to push for a universal rent control. While the pandemic-induced landlords have argued missed rent, a handful of municipalities have adopted good cause this year, which further, and people really want more tenant protections, more security in their homes. The rent control by modest 53%. However, tenant side win campaign displayed 4 million opposition campaign. The rent control raised nearly $200K. Policies came on its heel. Affordable housing, Twin Cities. I think it is. Okay. The national trend towards greater protection is really encouraging. Housing campaign coordinator Advocates, let's see here. This is it. Just in New York, good cause evictions is on the docket of bill real estate industry deemed universal rent control. So they're pushing for a universal rent control. What is happening next is very frightening. So this came out today. For fewer than 100 employees. Fewer than 100 employees. So what this is going to look like, just to be very clear, I'm literally just talking about the economic impact. The economic impact. If you have a small business and you have, let's say, 100 people in the country, let's say the country is 100 people, and 50 believe that the sky was blue, and then 50 believe that the sky was green. And if you were to say that the people that thought the sky were green, they could no longer work, ultimately what's going to happen is that business is likely going to collapse. It's going to fall, right? Because you're going to have half the employees, you're going to have all these customers, you're not going to have the support. Well, the reverse is about to happen with all of these new policies, all of these new changes that they're trying to push in, where they're essentially saying out of a workforce of 157 million, that half of these people, they're pushing for them to not be able to work. So what is then likely going to happen is we're talking massive supply chain disruption. We're talking, you think about it, what would be functioning normally if the rug got pulled out from underneath all small mom and pop businesses? Everything would collapse. This is what they're trying to do here. The occupational safety seeking comment on whether businesses with fewer than 100 employees should be subject to this, implementing on big business. Requirements, business with 100 more employees. This is January. So we got about 2 months. But according to the summary released by, it appears that considering implementing the rule for small business as well. So they are going to appear to be pushing this for small business. So what is a very unfortunate to me is that we have a real big problem where everybody is, at least it seems, everyone is invested to the gills. They're leveraged to the gills. They think that this party is not going to stop. How can we ignore the ramifications that are likely going to be jammed into the economy very soon, regardless if this 100 employee situation happens or does not happen? 100 or less. The 100 employees or more is going to happen. I did a video talking about this, saying that 1 out of 4 employees in the country would lose their job. And that was based upon the data that 67% of the people that have not yet will not. So that's the number. That was not factoring in for small business. That was not factoring in for the company that had 90 employees. It's only big business. What is this going to do? Is this going to take us to a situation where before, if it was 25% of the workforce, now it's going to go to 40%, to 50%? It's insanity. It's insanity. And we're stepping into this insanity right now, and it's so hard for me to ignore it. They're saying that their complement 100 employees have the admin capacity to implement the standard requirements promptly, but is less confident that smaller businesses can do it without undue disruption. The summary: additional time to assess the capacity of small businesses and seeking comment. I'm sure they really care about their comments. A Department of Labor, 100 workers, 100 employees threshold at the time, because the admin is confident employers with 100 or more employees have the admin capacity to implement the requirements. But the emergency situation, so, what's also interesting is that in my video that I was just talking about with the 1 out of 4 employees, I said that what's going to happen is it's going to go from 100 employees, then it's going to go to 50, then it's going to go to 40, then 20, then 10, then 2, and then you. That's what they're trying to do. It's not going to just stop at like 100 and be like, oh, okay. That's why when I'm talking about why I think rents are going to fall, I'm not saying that they're going to fall because of, just for any old reason. Utility bills are set to skyrocket. In Los Angeles, they're now doing something called prime coverage. So between like 4 and 9 p.m., they're going to start billing you more. So during peak times, they're charging you more for food. There's a lot less opportunities out there for almost anybody now. I mean, you small businesses, if you'll see a for hire sign in every single business right now, like essentially every single business, and they can't find any opportunity because everyone's sitting back home. They don't want to work. Even me right now, I'm trying to get an attorney, I'm trying to get an accountant, and I'm trying to get someone else that's going to be helping me with this new online business venture that I'm working on. And I've been waiting for responses for the last 48 hours. Like I want to pay these people to work on this, and I can't get people to work on it. We're going to be stepping into this whole new situation here. And what I think they're ultimately going to do, which is really screwed up, but what I think they're going to do here is that I think that they're going to push this so hard to where they're going to essentially, they're going to first touch property like they've been doing, kind of like with the eviction moratorium. But then what's going to ultimately happen is that they're going to step on the gas a little bit. And when I say step on the gas, I mean, we can just take another look at this article here, where the fines are going to be going up. So what this is going to look like is the 1.5 trill, it's like nothing today. We just print a couple billion here, a couple trillion here. But it's going to, businesses with 100 employees, right? And fines going to be as high as 14K, right? But under this new plan, it's tenfold, up to 70,000 and 700,000. It's like a ridiculous amount of money. Like if you think about how long, if you were a doctor, let's say you went to Yale and you went for 4 years, then you went for another 4 years to really like get ready to where you could then do another 2 years at the hospital, work underneath somebody. So now you're 10 years into your career, probably sitting on $250,000 in debt, right? Had no life from 19 to 30, right? And now you're finally getting ahead. You're making $300,000 a year, $400,000 a year. Now under the new tax plan, a third of that or more probably going to the state and federal, and then your insurance and your cost of actually being a doctor. It's through the roof. What's ultimately going to happen is you're going to be left with a $100,000 salary, $125,000 salary. If you're living in a studio apartment, you have basic health insurance, eating McDonald's every day, and you're driving a Kia. Ultimately, you might be able to save $50,000 a year, right? So $50K a year. And if you were to work for 10 years, you would save $500K. If you were to work for 12 and a half years or 13 years, you would have enough possibly to pay for Biden's mandate. That is not going to happen for any small business owner. They're not going to value their employees at, say, $100K or $500K or $700K. It doesn't matter what their industry. It doesn't matter what their career. No employee is worth $700,000. That's just 100% true. There's no employee out there, unless you're, an elite at Apple. But these people, it doesn't apply for that situation. Then they go on to say that the First Amendment of the occupational, let's see here. Oh, hold on one second. The maximum penalty under the current law is 7 for serious, but rises to nearly 14 after being adjusted for inflation. Well, I guess that's where the inflation kind of kicks in and for their benefit. This plan would replace the 7K maximum to 70. I mean, like, I can't say this without laughing because how insane this is. Like, this is pure insanity. Going from 7, which is a lot, to 7D is to adjust it for inflation and under this plan. They go on to say that for willful or repeated, it would jump to $700,000 according, right? The rules under the admin cover around 100 million employees, making up about 2/3 of the workforce, according to the White House. This will lead to 23 million employees, right? That was just with, this is, and where this goes next is anybody's guess. I personally think that where this goes next is probably somewhere pretty scary because it goes like this, right? It's not going like this where it's like, okay, we're going to start and then staying on that trajectory. No, it's kind of like going like this, then you go down 2, and then you go up 5, and then 6, and then you go down 2 more, and you go up 12. That's kind of the trajectory that we're going on right now. And I don't know. I mean, for me, if I had a brick and mortar store and then someone said, because you worked so hard, you took out all this debt, you got the lease location, you paid for your insurance, you did a build out on your office, spent $50K, took all this risk, jeopardized losing your friends and your marriage, because if the business failed, you lost everything, you'd probably be left with very little. And then you finally get there, and all of your best employees, they're all, different people. Everyone believes in different things. And now you're pushed in a corner, and they say, you have to do this, or we're going to bankrupt you and send you to the poorhouse, even if you are successful. That's exactly what is happening right now. It's exactly what is happening right now. And it's so hard for me to sit back and say, how about I do content on Shiba Inu? How about I talk about, without talking about the real things that matter, which is the world's changing. The situation's absolutely insane. And if we're not smart and we're not prepared, we could end up missing what I believe is probably going to be the biggest recession ever. This is going to be a depression. If we look at the actual data, right? 2008, when everything collapsed. When everything collapsed, the unemployment rate was 10.5%. 10.5%. It's not bad, right? In 1933, look this up for yourself. The unemployment rate was 26% or 25.5%. If it was 100 employees or more, and it did not go to where they're trying to do it right now, which is going to be all employees, what's ultimately going to happen is that it's not going to be a 25% like 1929 style or 1933 style depression. No, it's going to be much greater than a 25 or 26%, because now you're tacking in, another 100 million, 50 million, 60 million employees. It's a massive number. You have 157 million people in the workforce. Every single one would apply. This would apply to them, everyone. So this is crazy. This is insane. I think rents are going to fall. I think affordability is going to fall. I think crime in big cities is about to get out of control. And I think that a lot of people are asleep at the wheel as to what's happening right now with all of this. But yeah, I mean, it's just so hard. I'm going to Mexico tomorrow. I'm going to Mexico tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., meeting up with a friend out there. And I'm going to look at the idea of, maybe, I don't know, I'm going to check it out. Like, my intention is to stay in America, but with the way America is headed right now, like what's happening, I have 2 kids. I have 2 young kids. I'm looking at this world right now and I'm saying, what is next? Now, anything that I think or say, it's nothing's crazy anymore. The only thing crazy is when you talk to someone that is completely asleep as to what's going on. This is going on. This is happening. This is without a doubt going down. And real estate, stocks, people are going to start pulling out. I think they're going to start pulling out of the stock market, start pulling out. Also, they're pulling back on the money that they're pumping into the economy that we've all seen about. Jerome Powell discussed this a couple of days ago, said that they're going to stop buying into the economy to keep propping everything up. They're going to slowly start pulling back at the same time that all of these employees are getting let go. So all food pricing is going through the roof. Like, everything is so expensive. Like, I'm shocked half the time that I go out, and I'm not like where I'm out there spending a ton of money. I'm just an everyday guy. I went and got a breakfast sandwich today, and it was a little bacon, egg, and cheese on a croissant and a nice vanilla latte. It was $18. Insane. For lunch, I went and got a chicken Parmesan sandwich. I got 2 of them. Me and my wife. It was $34 for 2 chicken sandwiches. Like, things are getting out of control. I was talking to the lady at the front desk. I'm like, hey, I'm hearing all this stuff on the news. I don't know what to believe. but they're saying that there's mass shortages. What are you guys seeing? She pointed to the board. You said, you see that? And they had tape over all the pricing for like a lot of the different foods on a certain section of the wall. And she's like, we had to increase our prices so much to make up for the additional costs we're forced to pay. Then she pulled out a piece of whatever the material is that they actually wrap your sandwich in. She's like, this just doubled. Everything is, and I'm just thinking like, well, who's going to be able to afford this stuff? When people are losing their jobs, food pricing is getting out of control, and a lot of people have money in the market. When everyone awakes to what's happening, what are they likely going to do? They're going to panic. They're probably going to sell. That's why I bet anything that the stock market, everything is going to be a lot different in 6 months than it is today. There's no way that this just continues straight through this without hitting a brick wall. Like it is, there's no way. At least for me, I'm trying to see different things. I'm trying to take a look back and say, you know what, I could be completely wrong here. But every single day I go in and I'm looking at like the news, and it's just, they're progressing with it. Like this isn't going to go away. This is happening. And I think it's very smart for everyone to be aware of it, to have liquidity, have some cash, hopefully cut as many liabilities as possible, meaning like luxury cars and items that are simply that you can't really afford, but you have it to keep up with the Joneses. Those things, cut back. If it hurts your pocket every month writing that check and you're really thinking about it, cut back on it. Really put yourself in a position to where you can be, you can pivot with the times, because there's going to be a big pivot coming. That's what I'm thinking. Anyway, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe this all doesn't happen. Maybe, but I mean, we look at what's happening in New York. We look at what's happening in LA. It's already happening. So this is going to happen, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I talked to a lot of my good buddies they're doing really, really well, and they just don't want to see it. They just continue moving on. Like it's not a big deal. Everything is completely fine. I'm like, how? Like, educate me, make me smarter. This is what I'm seeing. What are you seeing that's better information so I can make better decisions? And they have nothing to say. Like, I'm always open to lose a discussion or lose a debate. My job isn't to win. My job is to be the person that has the best information. If somebody has better information, I will quickly take that information. I'll review it. If it's correct, I'm going to pivot to that. I'm not going to be stubborn in my way of thinking. But yeah, I mean, it's nuts. I'm literally buying a condo out here. It's like a little townhouse in Florida, because my rent just went from $2,500 to $5,500. The condo, I mean, the place is super cheap, but it's a really, really good deal. Like, it's a really good deal. It's going to greatly reduce my expenses to like almost zero, and not taking a loan out on the property. And I was able to get just an incredible deal. I could probably flip it, the day that I listed it, and make a really pretty good profit on it, actually. But I'm not going to. I'm just going to live there and see what happens over the next 6 months. And if what I think happens, I'm going to be out there stockpiling capital into a variety of different assets that I think are going to perform extremely well over the next couple of years. Because what we're seeing right now, this is going to essentially be the erosion of the middle class, and it's going to be the takeover of big corporations. These big corporations are going to do what? They're going to get rid of their useless dollars and buy power, real estate, and control. That's what they're going to do. They're not going to want to sit on $20 billion in capital, knowing that in 2 years, that $20 billion is going to have the purchasing power of $5 billion, because they're on a print fest. The Federal Reserve they're printing so much money, and it looks like they're about to print another, 1.5 or 1.75 trillion bill here. And then I think there's the other one for, let's see, I think the other one's 3.5. So, 5 trillion. These are big numbers. I mean, if you look at the actual government debt and you look at the size of these packages, it's a whopper of an expense. It's going to completely shift and shape the demand from people to Big Brother. when they step in and we're talking about healthcare, we're talking about childcare, we're talking about basically everything that we once knew as a country changing overnight. We can't be naive and say that, hey, this isn't going to impact real estate. It's not going to impact my stock portfolio. It's not going to impact crypto. I'm going to tell you what, most of the people in crypto right now, this is just the honest truth. Most of the people in crypto right now are not the smartest people. They're just simply people that are out there that are trying to make 10x, 5x, 7x. It's a very small percentage of the room that's in there that actually understands blockchain and the true utility of cryptocurrency. And because of that, what's ultimately going to happen with the people that don't have the means of weathering a storm, when things hit the fan, are they going to sell their stocks first, their real estate first, their car first, or crypto that they bought as a gamble? They're probably going to sell crypto first, then they're going to likely sell stocks, and then they're probably going to try to downsize their car if they have to, and then they're going to try to downsize their house, but they're going to try to do whatever they can do to weather the storm immediately. They're going to pay their mortgage if they can. They're going to feed themselves, and they need a car to drive around. So odds are they're probably going to have some type of crypto sell-off in the event that we have a situation where there's mass unemployment greater than the Great Depression. This isn't like there's people that are buying gold, for example, like precious metals. That's a different mindset than someone that's buying cryptocurrencies. Someone buying gold generally is somebody that's a bit older. They look back on the history of gold. They buy it. They take possession of it, not so much for a 10x or 5x gain, but simply just to store the dollar at its current state and hedge themselves against inflation and be able to take some money out of the bank and position themselves where they have control over their currency. It's a different mentality entirely with crypto. With real estate right now, real estate is doing some very interesting things, and prices are through the roof, rents are through the roof, but the main hedge for real estate that is a really big advantage right now is the fear of inflation. The simply just borrowing money at 3%, it's like free money, and allocating it into real estate. And if you look at the history of real estate over the long term, it's always done extremely well. So people are saying, hey, I'm just going to stockpile in. But the big question we have to ask ourselves is, what does this real estate market look like when you're buying properties at a 5 cap or a 6 cap and everyone's losing their jobs? The only way that these rents are going to continue flowing in would be through a Section 8 situation, or through a situation to where maybe they sold their properties to Big Brother. But you have to also take a hard look at the infrastructure package. Biden wants 2 million affordable housing units. This is the ideal situation to go out there and to acquire these distressed properties. That's what it's looking like to me. So someone asked me, where is the news coming from? So let's see here. This came out today. This is Fox, and this one also I think is Fox. But I put CNN articles. I use articles from all over the place. I don't just use one. You can verify this all yourself. So, and this one here is, it's not letting me click it, but that's Fox as well. Let's see. Yeah, it's not letting me click it for some weird reason. But Fox, this is the real deal. I mean, they have some pretty good content. It's like mainly all real estate and business stuff on the real deal. But yeah, I mean, you look it up yourself. Look it up yourself. You can Google it, do all your research. You look it up. But the most important thing here is that everybody simply just takes out a piece of paper and they just do the core fundamentals. How many people are working? How many people are about to lose their jobs? You look at the cost of living increasing, the cost of food increasing. If there's not more money coming to the individual and more prosperity coming to the individual, there's no way that everything maintains and continues climbing. If the prosperity is being sucked out and the costs are going up and the opportunities are going down, what's ultimately going to happen is that odds are there's going to be a massive affordability issue, which is ultimately going to collapse the real estate market, collapse everything. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see this, and even right now, when like with buying cars, with buying anything, one big thing that I think a lot of people are underestimating is this shortage. You might not be able to get certain car parts. You might not get certain appliances for a house flip. I was talking to the inspector today at the property I just mentioned, and I was saying, hey, if I'm going to buy everything, I'm going to buy it all in one shot because it needs new tile floors, needs a new unit for the AC, and needs all new cabinets. It needs everything. So I'm just going to buy it all and probably just throw it in a bedroom and use it when I need it, because in 6 months or 3 months, I might have a harder time getting it. Or if I can get it at all, it's probably going to cost me more money. But yeah, someone just said Shiba skyrocket. Yeah, I mean, there's so much money being made right now in crypto. And the ultimate question, though, is we have to realize that that's not going to be sustainable long term. So you can make a lot of money in crypto, sure, definitely can. But the big question just always is, you look at the history of crypto, it always has its volatile swings. So just make sure that, when you're up greatly, you're pulling off some risk. You're taking some risk off the table, so that when it drops, you're not really sweating it. You're like, hey, I'm just riding profits anyway. It doesn't really matter. But when you're riding everything, where you have nothing in the bank, you're just riding everything in crypto, and you're not pulling profits, you're setting yourself up for a potential problem. That's a very, very important piece of advice, is always make sure you're pulling some of your risk off the table as you're enjoying that ride. One of my friends in public housing and pays $100 a month for a 2-bedroom free trade school. Let's see here. It just jumped. He called me selfish for opposing socialism. Yeah. The problem with everything now is communication has been pretty challenging. There's a lot of people, they think socialism means that, nice, great healthcare, healthy food, everybody's happy, everything looks good. But ultimately, that's not where this is headed. This is not headed to socialism. This is headed to a real problem, something much greater than socialism. And unfortunately, when you start presenting and laying out the facts, and you're like, hey, this is all the data, this is all the details, this is all the information, please prove me wrong that this is not where we end up. And at that point, that's probably when the conversation stops, and then they want to stop talking about it. Because where this is ending is not going to be some beautiful fairy tale. This is probably going to end in an economic collapse. I mean, there's no way around it. If the supply chain is suffering, and you have a situation right now where millions, I'm not talking 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, I'm talking 50, 60 million people have a question to ask themselves, that have already said the sky is green, and when everyone else say, hey, the sky is blue, if they don't change their mind to say, yeah, the sky is not green, it's blue, they're going to be out of work. What does this mean? This means that we're going to have like a whole 2-tier society situation, which is ultimately going to do what? And probably increase crime, because prosperity is, they've seen better days. Crime's probably going to go through the roof. The big cities are probably going to get pretty scary. Private security is going to be a really big business. It's probably going to blow up very soon. Or we could have a situation where, everyday middle-class people are hiring private security, because private security, these people lost their jobs. Maybe they're giving them, hey, I'll give you a free place to stay and some food, and I'll give you $150 a week, or $200 a week. People are like, hey, free food, place to live? Yeah. I bet that's going to be a big thing going forward, because there's going to be a whole second society type situation. But it's unbelievable to me that it's happening in 2 months. It's confirmed 2 months that this all goes down. And so when this all goes down, what does the real world look like for Sally the hairdresser? If she has to let go of half of her staff, and the people that are in the streets that are walking around that also don't have as much money, they're not going to go to Sally's, the hairdresser. So they're not going to go there. I have a lot of people commenting, hey, I was just denied in West Hollywood. I was denied in Westwood at a restaurant. How are these restaurants going to stay alive when the margins that they're making They were barely making it before all this. When they lose 30%, 40%, or 50% of their customer base, what's going to happen is all of these stores are likely going to, this is my prediction, is that big corporations are going to start acquiring all these distressed malls, strip centers, automotive shops, and they're going to convert them into e-com distribution centers to where they can distribute products with drones to each location, each house. So people will be on like a subscription like Amazon Prime, they'll order something, drone will just drop it off. That's seriously probably where it's going. Because Amazon, I believe, already has the approval where they can deliver within like a 5-mile radius if it weighs less than 5 pounds to deliver via drone. And so if they can acquire all these properties for dirt cheap and they can get the tens of billions of dollars they have in the bank into hard, solid assets, and then they can use that to only generate even more money, more tax write-offs, and more dominance over the market, they'd be foolish not to do it. So that's where it's going. These small businesses are going to be facing some real big problems. And I'm looking at everything and I'm trying to say to myself, where does this go for me, for us? What should we be doing right now to position ourselves to make a lot of money? That's the ultimate question. Make a lot of money. Next 3 years, it really comes down to how can we make as much money as possible, invest it as wisely as possible, so that we can be completely free. And when you have pure freedom, then you have the ability to make decisions that you would prefer to make. If you don't have the true freedom and that income coming in or the security to fall back on, then it doesn't come down to the situation of what's the best decision. It really comes down to the decision of what is my only decision, which is a very bad place to be. And that's why with the beauty of online right now, people can make a ton of money, which is great. People can start online businesses. They can almost do anything with the internet connection. But with a brick and mortar store, with that level of control over your business, your industry, things get so hard. Everything will be electricity, even your house when you're not good. Yeah. They are talking about electrifying real estate too. So electrifying real estate is a huge deal. If people don't know what this means, think about how a house operates. So you have gas stoves, how your washer and dryer operates, how your microwave, how all the electricity comes in through your property. To electrify it, they want to get you off of that system and on solar so you can decarbonize your property, because apparently real estate contributes 40% of the carbon to the atmosphere. So they want to do that. And that is a massive expense, which is also going to, I think, impact a lot of real estate investors, multifamily property owners, house flippers, wholesalers, real estate agents. Everyone that's in the real estate industry is going to be impacted by this. And it's that other big question that I think that smart entrepreneurs right now, they are really just reading, studying what's actually happening behind the scenes, taking in all this information that a lot of people want to ignore and say, okay, it's not true. Look, if it's on whitehouse.gov and it says that this is what they're intending to do, it's silly to not say, okay, this is not the direction that we're going in. I can just dismiss this and proceed with my life. The smart thing to do would be, okay, if I'm doing this and that happens, what they say, what will my life look like? And if you can't live with that net result, then the question likely should be, what should I do now to pivot to make a decision that I can live with tomorrow, if this does in fact happen? They're saying it on the website that this is the direction they're going. They're saying it. I mean, Jen Paskey is saying the same thing. She's saying all of these things are set to happen. And if you're ignoring it, people are ignoring it. This is just such a game changer, though. People are not realizing this is such a game changer that it's just so hard. Like when I saw this today, I'm like, I woke up and I logged on to the internet, and I'm looking at this article, and I was going to go to Mexico 2 days ago, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. Then I canceled. I'm like, I'm not going to go. Forget about it. I have too much going on. I'm setting up this new business. I'm 2 kids, buying a property, doing inspections. I got a bunch of stuff going on. I'm not going to go. I woke up and saw that article, 100 employees or less. So it's essentially every single worker just thinking of the direction that America's headed in right now. I'm saying maybe the bigger risk would be not going and staying here and having all of my eggs in one basket, which is essentially what would happen. A lot of people have right now is all their eggs in one basket. But smart people right now are saying, hey, maybe the smart thing is having a second passport or a third passport, maybe having a house here in this location, or having bank accounts here, or having this here. This could be smart, right? Having options is smart. And fortunately, with the internet, if people have online businesses, they have more options than, say, if you have a automotive shop. My dad owned a TV repair shop when I was a kid. And this TV repair shop, it pretty much ran him. He didn't run it. He was always there. He was always dealing with employees. He was always on time. He was working his tail off, miserable, right? The traditional thing, miserable when he had to work and deal with all the IT guys or the technicians that are working on the televisions, and hated it. But now that business is dead, and online is where it's at. And it's proven even more so true over the last probably 18 months, 20 months. But yeah, definitely. Please hit that algorithm, the like button for the algorithm. But I just wanted to hop on here and talk to you guys about all this. What do you guys think is going to happen? Drop your comments in here. We'll start a discussion here. What do you think is going to happen with this? With essentially all employees? Do you think that this is going to drive the real estate market down, rentals down? Do you think that we're going to be stepping into a situation where it's going to be a survival of the fittest type situation, where crime is going to greatly increase in places like, LA, New York, essentially all the big cities, because people that are out of work, that have a family. I mean, look, if you were a father, if you don't have kids, if you were a father and you had a young child and this kid was hungry, tell me what you wouldn't do to feed that kid. That's the big question. Probably do anything, right? There's going to be millions of people with the same mentality. It's some crazy times. I'm going to keep you guys updated though, as I usually do. Subscribe here. You'll get a lot more information, and I'm going to keep you guys updated on everything that I learn. And we'll talk about what I'm doing, what my plan is, and how I'm investing, my new online business. I had to take a massive pivot from my former idea. I'm doing the due diligence right now with my accountant and my attorney, if I can get them, because it seems like even them, they make great money. Even them, it's hard to get them to be ambitious. 2 years ago, you're hiring someone, they were on it. Now, even somebody that's like an attorney, the turnaround time is painfully slow. It's just everyone's just relaxed. Everyone's in this, comfortable mood. When I'm the only person, I'm like, hey, we need to get on it now, because there's probably a 2 or 3 year window to do a massive cash grab, to build out as much liquidity and wealth for your family, to build out that mode of safety. And if we're casual now, what are the repercussions of that outlook 3 years from now, having missed this moment where we could all make money, we could all do this now, But smash that like button, subscribe here, and consider subbing on my second channel. You can find the link on my YouTube page, and I'll give you guys an update from Mexico. I have a flight out of Miami tomorrow early morning. All right, guys.